it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Twisted Season 1, Episode 14, Home is Where the Herd Is. And this episode was great. It really was. It was a great episode. In my opinion, probably my favorite episode of the season. I thought it was just such a great episode. I really liked the directions they're going, and I really liked how this episode kind of felt like a premiere episode, because things are a little bit different now. You know, we're going to start with a new style for the show. Some things are going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. And I definitely thought they went in a great direction. There were a lot of really cute scenes in this episode as well, and I really like what's starting to happen on the show. So definitely a great episode. So in this episode, you know, we see Danny. He's hoping to return to school, you know, because now they know that he did not do what, you know, he did not kill Regina. They know he didn't do that. So pretty much the students are off his back. You even see him have a conversation with this kid, and he's pretty nice to him, actually. He's really nice and everything. And it was nice to see that no one really called him socio or anything like that. And he's even pleased to hear that Archie and the other guys that tried to frame him, they got expelled. But he's still not exactly happy because he now has to deal with Charlie. Because we find out something about Charlie that's actually very interesting. Charlie is actually an old friend from his juvenile days. He was basically, I think Charlie was his cellmate. Now, Charlie pretended that they were strangers, at least in front of Lacey. He does admit to Danny, though, that later on he does want them to live with the stigma of his past, and he wants to start over. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to start over. He wants to pretend that, you know, all the bad shit that happened between them didn't happen. That's what he wants. And that's what ends up happening. Now, Lacey doesn't exactly understand why Danny is so on edge, and she's heard that he hasn't gone back to normal since being cleared on murder charges. We do get to see a little change on Lacey and Joe. Lacey and Joe kind of admit that, they say, I really like the line where they basically say that things are back to normal except that we're friends now, which they are. Lacey and Joe are like best friends now, so it's good to see that from them. I'm happy that they're friends, and it was a nice change of pace for the show. It wasn't like a huge thing, but I still felt it was a really nice change for the show, and that was definitely a nice little side plot that we got. That was really good in my opinion. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, that was definitely very, very good. So, Lacey simply assumed things would go back to normal with only one slight change. She figured that now that they could open their relationship to the point where he would want to go to the homecoming with her. Because if you remember, Joe approved of them being together. She said you can be together, you know, things like that. But Danny is not really concerned about that. Lacey has talked to Joe about it, and Joe tried to be a big enough friend by telling Danny outright. She tells him just straight out, take Lacey to the dance. And he couldn't believe she would say something like that to him, because as far as Danny is concerned, his relationship with Lacey ended the instant that they covered up his father's death. He can't be in a relationship with a secret like that between them. He's really just does not want to be in a relationship at this point. It's very uncomfortable having Joe intervene with him and Lacey, too, because everyone knows she likes him, and Danny felt her time would be better spent on Rico. Now, Rico, as we know, liked Joe. He's kind of moved on from her at this point. Rico is actually, Rico was in love with her. Why shouldn't Joe accept a good thing? But Rico is actually, there's this girl named Andy who actually likes him. And eventually someone's just going to have to settle. He has someone new that he likes. So he's kind of moved on from Joe. It seems like Joe's kind of like the odd girl out in this episode. She really doesn't have anyone, it seems. Danny doesn't want to go to the homecoming with her. Rico has someone. Lacey wants to go with, Joe really has nobody at this point. It's kind of sad. So Charlie and Danny, they're on the soccer field together. Charlie had asked his former cellmate if it was okay to ask Lacey to dance. He claimed he wasn't sure about their relationship, but then that did not stick around to hear, because Danny explained what complicated meant, and Charlie preferred it as confirmation that Danny and Lacey aren't together. Now, I really like Charlie's character, He's not a bad character. I thought he was going to be like the big villain of this of the season, but, the next big villain, but that's not happening at all. He actually is a very nice character. character. He just wants to start over. He wants to pretend that they did not know each other. And I really like that. A lot of this episode is about starting over and changing things. And that really is, that's the overall message of this episode. And I really thought that was a great message because I think that's great. So he went on to ask Lacey at the writing course. He asked and she said no. Lacey explained that she's already going with Danny, yet Charlie corrected her. In his version of events, he got Danny's permission to ask her out. So Lacey went to Danny. She's scared he doesn't want to be with her anymore because she once tried to hide their relationship. So she apologizes, hoping he will give them another chance. And he nearly didn't. Until she was telling him how much of a good guy he was, and that's why she liked him. And it was a wrong thing to say, seeing it as it reminded it about his father. And Danny eventually does end up asking her to the homecoming, which I really liked. I like that he eventually did pull through, and he eventually did ask her out. And again, another person going is Rico, and Joe has found a way to keep Rico around without his feelings for getting in the way. She picked up on Andy's crush and decided to use that to her advantage. She told Rico about it and then suggested he take Andy to the dance. Rico had been thinking that maybe he could pursue something with her when she told him that she wasn't half as good as Andy. Andy is who he deserves, while she's merely the guy that signed him on the dance committee so they could attend only as friends. Because Joe had signed him up for them to do something at the homecoming, but he ends up going with Andy, so that's what happened to Joe. And again, Joe really at this point doesn't have anybody, it seems, until the ending of the episode, which was really cute, and I'll get to that. It also makes it easy for, in the countdown to the dance, Danny is starting to, I really like this scene. It seemed like for the rest of the episode, Danny was not able to forgive himself for anything. But, we see here in the scene that he's actually starting to move past Vikram. He also wanted to, the same for his mother. He caught her with Jack and thought having another guy around the house wouldn't be so bad. If you remember, Jack kissed her in the last episode, and she slapped him for it. Danny's actually saying go for it. And again, it's a great message of starting over. He invited Jack over for some male bonding. They're going to fix a car together. This way he can get to learn more about Jack and finally get answers about his father. Plus, it makes it easy for his mother. She needs happiness, too. He left them at the house together to go pick up Lacey, Karen, and Jack, and to go pick up Lacey. And Karen and Jack, they have an odd relationship, though. They started seeing each other back when she was married. She's not necessarily sure if she still is. Vikram being alive has ruined plenty of things. She doesn't know if she can be with Jack, and she won't be able to get the life insurance money from Vikram's death. So she's been struggling with the bills. Now she's lost out on a $10 million insurance claim. So that kind of sucks. So then we see Danny. He goes to the dance. And it seems he's very on edge the whole night. Not really into it at all. He's really just not having a very good time. And, you still gotta feel bad for Joe. Because Joe still, at this point, has nobody. They go to the dance, though. And Joe kept on having to talk him off the ledge. His breaking point arrived. And what ended up happening, though, is, it's time for them to crown the homecoming king and queen, which was a pretty big moment. I didn't expect this to happen, really. I didn't expect it to be as big a moment as it was, but the girl who does it says the homecoming queen would have been Regina had she not died. And the homecoming king is Danny. Now, Danny doesn't really know what to do. It seems like everything is, everyone's happy about it and everything. But then Sarita, who... basically, this is like the worst thing she could have done. Sarita, who was host saying who the prom king and queen was, she says straight out to Danny, she says straight out to him that the only reason people are doing this is because they feel sorry for you, and not everybody feels sorry for you. Not everyone's happy with you. And she called him socio. So it seems like everything's okay, but it's not okay because there are still people who have not forgiven him for what he's done. And, she says that before crowning him, and it was way too much for him. That was, like, the worst thing that could have happened for him. Because after this, he goes on the stage, and he basically says, I don't deserve, and he basically says to them, I'm so surprised you, voted me. I don't deserve it. Give it to someone else. He's about to tell them that he killed Vikram. He's about to tell them that. But Joe actually stops him because she doesn't want him to basically put a target on his back again. He's free from that. So why the hell try to fix? Why should he try to put that target back on his back? And I really liked Joe in that scene. It was really nice of her to do that for him. So then he left the auditorium, and Lacey and Joe followed. Joe wanted to be supportive. Lacey couldn't. She finally got tired of his mood swings, and Lacey put an end to whatever they were and chose to focus on herself again. It was kind of sad at that moment because I didn't think that Danny and Lacey had a chance together. So I thought, that is. So Danny then returned home to find Jack still working on the car, where he couldn't discuss Lacey with Joe. He found out he doesn't have the same problem. He doesn't. He couldn't discuss Lacey with Joe. He found out he doesn't. And that's the same problem with Jack, because he mentioned how he lost it, and Jack reassured him that he could make it all to Lacey. He arrived, and then we get one of the cutest scenes of Twisted so far. We get two very cute scenes. Before this, we actually did get a really cute scene with Joe. You know how I said Joe doesn't have anyone? Joe actually does have someone. Charlie. Charlie was actually flirting with Joe. It was interesting to see, Charlie flirting with Joe. I didn't really expect that to happen, but Charlie's kind of the one who might actually help her. He says, why don't, and I really liked this scene. It was just very, very cute. I liked, because it's not really something we've seen from Twisted. Most times Twisted is Twisted. It's a dark show. It really is. It's a very dark show. It's definitely the darkest show on ABC Family. I will say that. But he goes up to her and he says something that I thought was very interesting. He says, why don't you ever smile? And, she doesn't really know what to say about that. And he just asks her, why don't you ever smile? And she says, I do not. I sometimes smile. But he doesn't really listen to her. He puts on music for her. And, they listen to the music together. And it seems like she's happy for once. So maybe Charlie is actually a good guy for Joe. It could be interesting to see what happens there. I definitely found that very interesting. I thought that was pretty big, though, because that was definitely a pretty big scene. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with that. I think Joe and Charlie might have a future together. We'll have to see. So that was definitely really big. Then we see Danny, and this is the second cute scene of the episode. He goes up to Lacey, and he basically says sorry. And, she was pretty much talk earlier. She forgave him easily enough. And he actually kisses her. They actually kiss. And he tells her that, let's just forget about everything that happened. I really like that. He said, let's forget about everything that happened. Let's just go back to beginning. And they basically pretend that they were meeting for the first time. And it was just very cute. And then they kissed again. And so I'm assuming that Danny and Lacey are going to be together now. I think they're going to be together now. We're going to have to see with that. But I think that's most likely where we're going with this. So then we get, so that was basically Danny's plot. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen there. Now let's get to the little subplot that we had with Kyle and Tess. There was a little bit of a subplot there, so let's just get to that. Kyle is still searching for Vikram. So far, they caught him in town a couple of days ago. Tess was in the office when they were going through surveillance footage before she didn't want to believe Vikram could be capable of such crimes, but she knows now not to trust him, so she got rid of her secret cell. So basically, Tess and Kyle, they go out to dinner, and he needs some time away from the office and investigation and thought his wife would prove to be a great distraction, but his dinner was interrupted. His second-in-command called him to tell him about a message they got off of Vikram's phone. It was a voicemail left for Tess. By Tess, not for Tess, by Tess. Now, Kyle is so angry after he hears this. He confronts Tess, who lamely used Vikram being there when he needed someone as an excuse. There are no excuses with Kyle. He's a chief of police. She has information on a murder suspect. And so Joe's night was kind of ruined after Kyle gets home, because after Kyle gets home, he's furious here. He's really upset. So she was asking what the argument was when Kyle got a call. He told his family what it was seconds before hanging up, and, he finds out that Vikram had just been found dead. So now we know that Vikram is officially dead, and it's actually going to be a better thing for Kyle. He could fix his relationship with his wife now. He might have thought that his wife maybe had something going with, that Tess had something going with Vikram, but now he knows, maybe they'll fix things. So I really love this episode. I think it was probably my favorite episode so far. Definitely my favorite episode of 1B. I think out of the 3, this was the best. I really like the tone of starting over and trying to fix everything bad in your life and, things like that. Because that happens for a lot of people, and I really enjoyed that with this episode. What do you think's going to happen with Lacey and Danny? Do you think they're together now? Also, Joe and Charlie, do you think they might start something? Do you think Charlie might be the one to pull Jo out of her misery? It seemed like he was able to do that. And also, do you think that now Vikram is dead, Kyle can kind of fix things with Tess? We'll have to see. And also, is Charlie going to eventually become a target for Danny? I don't think that will happen. And that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for Arrow. So, see you then. Bye.